Hey beauties and bees, how are you tonight? I hope you've been taking care of yourselves lately, but if not, that's okay. Tonight, as usual, we're staying warm, staying cozy, maybe with a little snack or your favorite drink nearby. Tonight, I want to talk about something that always freaks me out a little. Public transportation at night. You know that feeling when you're on a late bus or train and it's just you and a handful of strangers? The lights are dim, everyone's quiet, and you start noticing things. Like that person who got on like 3 stops ago and hasn't moved. Or those passengers in the back who you swear weren't there a second ago. Well, noticing those details could mean the difference between making it home safely or not making it home at all. This is the story of Beijing's Bus 375, which is a popular urban legend. And after you hear what happened on the night of November 14th, 1995, you might think twice before hopping on that late bus of the night. So let's get into it. Have you been on a bus and noticed someone in full cosplay? Full costume usually happens during convention season or near popular photo shoot locations. But what if the people you assumed were cosplayers weren't cosplayers at all? What if they were just something else entirely? Something real, something physically there but not supposed to be seen? The story I'm telling you today is an urban legend that's been around for decades. It's about a bus that disappeared one night in Beijing and was later found submerged in a reservoir. And what happened on that bus is the kind of thing that sounds impossible until you hear the details. Every culture has stories passed down through generations. Heroic tales, cautionary tales, tragic tales, but then there are the stories that are just deeply unsettling, the kind that stick with you. And this is absolutely one of them. Bus 375, one of Beijing's most well-known ghost bus legends. What happened on the night of November 14th, 1995 is bizarre enough that it still gets talked about today. November 14th, 1995, Beijing. One of those brutally cold nights where the wind just cuts right through your body. It's just past midnight, and the last bus of the day, number 375, pulls out of Yuanmingyuan terminus. This was the final run, the last chance for anyone still out to get home safely. The destination was Xiangshan, way out on the edge of the city. Because it was late at night, empty roads, pitch black, freezing cold. The kind of night where nobody's outside unless they have to be. On the bus, they're just the driver and a female conductor. The bus is cruising through the darkness when it stops at the south gate next to the old summer palace. The doors open and 4 people get on. An old lady, a young couple, and a young guy by himself. The couple takes seats up front, right behind the driver. The old lady, the young man sit across from each other near the door. Nobody's talking. It's the last bus of the night and everyone's exhausted. The couple's practically nodding off, trying to stay awake so they don't miss their stop. All you can hear is the engine and the wind outside. They're driving through a remote stretch now, and the silence gets heavier. The kind of quiet where you become aware of every sound, every breath, every creak. And the cold wasn't just uncomfortable. It was the kind that gets under your skin and makes everything feel off. So they're just driving along, and suddenly the driver sees 2 figures on the side of the road, waving the bus down. Now, this isn't a proper bus stop, but he stops anyway. The doors open, and 3 men walk on. And here is where it gets weird. 2 of the men are holding up a 3rd guy between them, supporting him by his shoulders. The guy in the middle looks just completely out of it, head down, disheveled, like he's drunk or passed out, and you can't see his face. And all three of them are wearing traditional Qing Dynasty robes, ancient Chinese clothing. Their faces are deathly pale, maybe because of the makeup, and they're staring blankly at the conductor without saying a word. The vibe is just immediately uncomfortable. So the other passengers start exchanging nervous glances. The female conductor notices this and tries to calm things down. She whispers, quietly enough that the three men won't hear. Don't worry, they're probably just actors filming a period drama nearby. Or maybe they went to a costume party and got too drunk to change. And that's a reasonable explanation, but at that point, nobody's buying it. The atmosphere in the bus keeps getting heavier. Even though it's not that cold, inside, people are just shivering. The old lady keeps turning around to look at the three strangers in the back. The two men are sitting on either side of the sleeping one, staring straight ahead, not blinking. The more she watches them, the more she realizes they haven't blinked once. Their faces look normal, their eyes look normal, but that blank stare isn't right. And after that, complete silence. Nobody speaks. All you hear is the wind outside and the bus engine grinding along. A few stops pass. Eventually, the young couple gets off. Now it's just the driver, the conductor, the young man, the old lady, and those three men in the back. So the conductor tries to lighten the mood by chatting with the driver, what he had for dinner, what movie just came out, small talk like that. They're joking around, and for a moment, the tension eases a bit. Then the old lady suddenly jumps up and hits the young man sitting in front of her. You stole my purse. It was you. The guy is stunned. What are you talking about? I've been sitting here the whole time. How could I have stolen anything? But the old lady is yelling, making a scene. The conductor tries to calm her down, but she gets louder. The young man, he's defending himself. And then the old lady grabs him by the collar and tells the driver to let them both off at the next stop. I'm taking him to the police station so he can confess. The young man is speechless. He hasn't done anything, but the driver speeds to the next stop anyway, and the old lady drags him off the bus. Dumbfounded, he just stands there, watching the bus disappear into the darkness. When the bus is out of sight, the old lady sighs with relief. So where is the police station? The young man asks, clearly annoyed. The old lady looks at him and says, there is no police station. What do you mean there's no police station? You just said, I saved your life. And he laughs. What is she talking about? She just humiliated him in front of everyone and now she's claiming she saved his life? The woman closes her eyes for a moment, deciding whether to tell him. Those three men, they weren't human. They were ghosts. And he laughs again. Ghosts? He saw them. They were solid. He could feel their presence the whole ride. But the old lady explains. From the moment those three men got on the bus, something felt off. She kept looking back at them, trying to convince herself she was wrong. Visually, they looked normal, just really pale with that strange blank stare and no blinking. And she was almost ready to accept they were just people in costumes. But then a breeze came through the window and their robes lifted up. There was nothing underneath, no legs. The young man goes pale. He is staring at her, trying to figure out if she's serious. And she is. Suddenly, he realizes he just spent almost an hour on a bus with the dead. No wonder the air felt suffocating. No wonder it was so cold. They call the police and report what happened. And as expected, the cops don't take it seriously. They just laugh it off. But the next morning, that laughter stops. Bus 375 never made it back to the station. It didn't crash. It just vanished. The driver and conductor are gone too. They just disappeared. The story blows up in the media. Police launch a massive search along the route, but find nothing. No trace of the bus anywhere. It's just gone. Then one of the officers remembers the report from that night. An old woman and a young man claiming they saw ghosts on a bus. And at the time, they dismissed it completely. The media gets wind of this, and suddenly the Beijing Evening News is interviewing the old lady and the young man on live TV. 2 days later, they find the bus. It's found in the Miyun Reservoir, about 100 kilometers from where it should have been. Inside are 3 bodies, badly decomposed, 2 men and 1 woman. Forensics identifies the female conductor and the driver, but the 3rd body, no one knows who it is. No missing person reports match. No identification. So he gets buried as John Doe. Then things get stranger. The police check the bus to figure out how it ended up in a reservoir so far from its route. According to the records, the bus shouldn't have had enough fuel to make it that far. So they opened the fuel tank. You know what was inside? It was filled with blood. And the bodies found in the bus were in horrific condition. And remember, they'd only been dead for 2 days in freezing November weather. But they were decomposed like they'd been there for weeks, bloated, blackened, rotting. Forensics confirmed no one had tampered with them. The decay happened naturally. And the last strange detail, police checked every security camera along every route to that reservoir. Not one of them caught the bus, not a single frame. The cameras were working fine, but the bus never appeared. Just empty rows. And to this day, nobody can explain it. Nobody knows how that bus ended up where it did, what that liquid really was, or what happened to those people. And some say it's just an internet story, that the bus just probably slipped on ice, but that doesn't explain how it traveled 100 kilometers with no fuel. And it doesn't explain the blood in the fuel tank. It doesn't explain why the cameras caught nothing. Now here's where it gets interesting. Beijing officials have actually denied this ever happened. They claim bus 375 never even traveled to Fragrant Hills, never passed through the Yuanmingyuan terminal. The Beijing Evening News even ran a story trying to debunk it. But some people believe that authorities deliberately suppressed information to avoid mass hysteria. And honestly, that's not far-fetched, because we're talking about mid-1990s China, a time when information control was tight and unsettling incidents that could cause public panic were often quietly buried. So if something truly bizarre happened, bodies found in inexplicable conditions, a bus discovered impossibly far from its route, would authorities really want that story getting out? Or would they prefer it stayed an urban legend, something easy to dismiss? The lack of official records doesn't necessarily prove it didn't happen, so we never know. So how did this story become so famous? It started spreading through late-night radio shows in the late 1990s. There was this broadcaster named Zhang Zhen who had a program called Zhang Zhen Tells Stories, and he was known for sharing ghost stories and urban legends. The Bus 375 story was one of them. Then it appeared on TV variety shows, and even famous singers started talking about it. The internet was just starting to take off in China around that time too. 1995 was significant. China had just gotten internet access in 1994, and early forums started moving popular offline ghost stories online. Because it was so hard to verify anything online back then, these stories spread like wildfire, and people couldn't easily fact-check them. In the early 2000s, the story exploded on sites like Tianya Club, one of China's biggest early internet forums founded in 1999. where the first generation of Chinese internet users gathered. People were sharing it, adding their own details, and creating different versions. And that is when it became one of the most famous urban legends in the country. But I think the real reason the story resonated was the timing. This was the mid-1990s, right when China was going through massive modernization. Cities were changing overnight, old neighborhoods were disappearing, hundreds of millions of people were moving from the countryside to cities, the largest internal migration in human history. Traditional values were being challenged, and people felt this deep anxiety about losing their culture, their history, their connection to the past. And then this story appears. 3 figures in Qing dynasty robes, ancient China, symbols of imperial power, appearing on a modern city bus. It's almost symbolic. The past literally haunting the present. Stories like this emerged during the times of rapid social change as a way for people to process cultural anxiety. Maybe it captured the collective fear about modernization happening too fast. The legend exists in multiple versions. Sometimes it's bus 302, sometimes 330, sometimes 375. And some versions say the bus was never found. Others claim a female ghost in a red dress replaced the 3 men. The variations actually make it more believable in a weird way, like how real events get distorted as they're retold. And people still report similar experiences. Ghost buses that take routes that don't exist. Late night passengers who don't look quite right. Chinese people believe in these spiritual stories more than you might think. Folklore still influences daily life in China. Even today, some people avoid wearing black or red at night, don't pick up coins from the ground, avoid sitting at the back of buses, and won't go out late during ghost months. All because these things are believed to attract spirits. Despite China officially being atheist, about 75% of people still perform rituals for deceased family members. And once you know the story, every strange experience on a late-night bus gets filtered through that lens. The legend becomes self-perpetrating. It's the power of suggestion combined with genuine unease. So, was it real? We will probably never know for sure. But does that matter? The scariest part of the story is that all of us, at some point, have ridden the last bus. We've all been in that small liminal space between day and night, city and suburbs, safety and uncertainty. We've all sat there with strangers in the dark, wondering who they really are. Whether it happened exactly as told, whether records were erased, or whether it's just pure folklore, the fear it taps into is real. And that is what makes it timeless. So next time you're on a late night bus, pay attention to who gets on. You might end up somewhere unexpected. And if you're unlucky, somewhere you can't come back from. What would you have done in that situation? Let me know in the comments. And that is a wrap for today. See you guys in our next episode. Bye bye.